Your Excellency, my dear sister Tumisimi, Brother Peace, the AU Commissioner for Agriculture and Rural Development, my sister Agnes, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, President of AGRA, my big brother, Dr. Kanayo Nwanze, I'll talk about you later, the President of IFAD, the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, welcome to this session. First, let me apologize that I wasn't able to be here yesterday. Yesterday was our budget session at the African Development Bank, and I had to chair that budget session. It was the first one after the break, and so I couldn't. So I just came in this morning straight from the airport. There's absolutely no way I was going to miss any event here. I see the ministers that are here. Please, I recognize Your Excellencies. Thank you, Adesina and others. Thank you for being here. I am delighted to be here today at this African Green Revolution Forum. It is a special forum personally for me because I helped to start it together with my colleagues at AGRA when I worked here at AGRA. I am proud to have worked at AGRA, and I would like to congratulate you, Agnes, and all the colleagues for all the excellent work that you continue to do for African agriculture. I would like to, in particular, congratulate my senior brother, mentor and friend, Dr. Kanayo Nwanze, a brand new first winner of the African Food Prize. I'm so proud of you, sir, because many of you may not know when I started my international career, I wanted to be just like him. I stayed with him for a couple of weeks in Ikrisad in India, and he taught me a few things, but he can be a very mean guy. He plays tennis very hard, and he takes no prisoners. He used to beat me so much in tennis, I got so annoyed. But I think as I look at him now as your Africa Food Prize winner, with his age, I can decide to challenge him now in tennis because I can beat him now. Congratulations, Dr. Nwanze. You've done great work for global agriculture. We're so proud of you. You're an African that makes us so proud, and congratulations again, sir. And what you do and what AGRA does, and all of us in this room today, it's very important work. One that focuses on how to feed Africa. Feeding Africa is one of the high 5 priorities that I put in place when I was elected as president of the African Development Bank. Africa needs to feed itself and develop with pride. There is no reason for Africa to be a net food importing region. The continent is richly blessed with abundant land and water resources, cheap labor, and great sunshine. Africa should be a breadbasket for the world, and for good reason. The continent holds 65% of all the arable land left to feed the world by 2050. But the paradox is the continent is unable to feed itself. This, in my view, is a very major embarrassment for Africa. Enough of Africa begging for food. It is time for Africa to feed itself. The $35 billion that Africa spends on food imports is a huge burden, worsening current account and fiscal deficits, and creating macroeconomic instability. If the current trend continues, Africa will spend $100 billion on food imports by 2025. We must, however, see opportunities in the challenges. The collapse of the commodity prices facing African countries is a challenge, yes. There's no doubt about that. But it is also a real opportunity. An opportunity to rapidly diversify African economies. And there is no better sector to diversify into than agriculture. Accelerating agricultural production will reduce the food import bills, revive the rural economies, slow down rural-urban migration, expand foreign exchange earnings, and create jobs, especially for the youths. Africa must seize this moment and prioritize investments in agriculture. That is why the African Development Bank has launched its Feed Africa strategy. We plan to invest $24 billion over the next 10 years in support of African countries and the private sector to unlock the potential of African agriculture. And Chiji Ojukwu, my director for agriculture, is here. I think he spoke to you yesterday about this. Ladies and gentlemen, to get there, we need a stronger role for governments. Africa must learn from the Asian countries, which rapidly expanded public investments in their agricultural sectors to achieve the green revolution. There is no denying the fact that without the green revolution in Asia, the continent will not be the industrial and economic powerhouse that it is today. Governments must play their role for better organizing the agriculture sector for greater performance. The structural adjustment and the dissolution of marketing institutions that used to support farmers was a mistake. It set back African agriculture by decades. The assumption that these institutions will soon be replaced by the private sector never materialized. This calls for a new role for the state, the developmental state. Experiences from successful agricultural transformations in Africa show that they were achieved through strong partnerships between the state and the private sector. Sound public policies stimulate sound private sector investments. The recent rapid growth of the Ethiopian commodity exchange was not because of an quote-unquote invisible hand of the market, but rather through a well-structured engagement of the state. This assured the formation of market institutions that allows the country to take advantage of its products for earning foreign exchange. The success right here in your beautiful country, Cabinet Secretary, in the horticulture industry of Kenya did not happen by chance. The public sector played a critical role in directing financing for technologies through research and extension services for farmers. The private sector was bolstered because there were strong institutions such as the Fresh Produce Exporters Association of Kenya that helped in marketing coordination. Ladies and gentlemen, the approach of the developed countries should inform us even better. They never abandon their farmers. Just ask any politician in France who wants to dismantle subsidies for farmers, or a politician, since we are in the US election period, trying to win an election in the United States who does not support farmers in Iowa. If you go back, and I know we have some Waffle Prize winners here, I'll see them in Iowa. Where are they actually? I thought I saw them here, but yeah, please, Jan Lowe and Howdy and so on, we really appreciate your leadership and congratulations for your wonderful work. But you know, nobody really can become president of the United States if you don't win in Iowa. And Iowa is controlled by farmers. That tells you farmers rule. That's what we need in Africa. When the world witnessed its worst financial crisis in 2008, the developed countries quickly ramped up government support for banks and financial institutions. The banks were too big to fail. It is time to support African farmers. African farmers cannot be allowed to fail. We must address farmers' perennial lack of access to finance. Despite accounting for 32% of the GDP, the agriculture sector receives less than 3% of the banking sector's financing. The critical role of the government is to help address the coordination failures and reduce the risk facing the financial sector in lending to the agriculture sector. I know this very well, as I led the team that started such an effort when I was vice president here at AGRA. We worked to develop and roll out risk-sharing instruments to reduce the risk of commercial bank lending to the agricultural sector. And it worked with impressive results. And in that partnership, I want to recognize IFAD because we work so closely in doing many of these things in Africa. In Nigeria, We developed a national risk-sharing facility for banks to lend to agriculture called NISAL, and my colleagues from the ministry are here and others from Nigeria, with the Central Bank of Nigeria. 1 year later, I didn't know I was going to become Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria. Now I had to go back to Nigeria now and implement what we had designed right here within AGRA. Of course, I went to work very quickly with my very dear friend Sanusi Lamido, who is now the Emir of Kano. The result exceeded all expectations. In fact, I just saw my friend there from McKinsey. Can you stand? Yeah, he's the one that helped us on the design. Can you stand, please? Yeah, and right behind McKinsey. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. The result exceeded all expectations. Nigeria witnessed a 600% increase in lending by banks to the agriculture sector, rising from 0.7% of total bank lending when we started to 5% 4 years after. Bolstered by the success, trust was built. Banks rapidly expanded and established their own agricultural lending desks. NISAL, which started as a project intervention, an idea, today has grown to become a large, self-sustaining, non-bank financial institution in Nigeria. From Kenya, Uganda, Mozambique, and Ghana, we also witnessed significant expansion of lending by banks due to the important role of governments in reducing the lending risks. The lesson, ladies and gentlemen, is clear. Development finance institutions and multilateral development banks like ourselves, IFAD, and others should now get together and set up national risk-sharing facilities in every African country to substantially leverage financing to agriculture. These should include establishment of specialized agribusiness development banks. Note very well, I didn't say agricultural development banks. I said agribusiness development banks to provide affordable finance all through the value chain, from the farm straight to the logistics, transport, everything, warehousing. That's the modernization of agriculture. I'm sure my big brother, Kanayo Nwanze, must have really wowed you all yesterday. If I was here, I knew exactly what he's going to say. I know his mind. He always said we are from the same mother. But ladies and gentlemen, the political will to achieve this now is very strong. And I'm very proud of what is being done at the African Union. My sister here has done a tremendous amount of job, our AU Commissioner, over the years for that, for CADA, for Malabo, declarations, and all of that. And she was there also with us in Dakar when we had a high-level conference in Dakar on the Feed Africa initiative. There, the ministers of finance, the ministers of agriculture, and importantly, the central bank governors decided to set up facilities to de-risk the financial markets for agriculture across Africa. What a great development. I have been in agriculture for most of my life. I have never been in a meeting where we had 62 ministers of finance, agriculture, and central bank governors talking about agriculture. That's fantastic. That's a different time we're talking about today. But we must also create market and new income opportunities for farmers in rural areas. To do so, the current trend where food manufacturing companies are located in urban areas close to the ports, depending on imported semi-processed foods or raw materials, needs to change. Massive quantities of food crops, fresh fruits and vegetables and dairy products go to waste in rural areas, while Africa depends on food imports. And the food waste is immense, enough to feed at least 300 million people per year. That is more than the 250 million people that go hungry every year in Africa. Now, turning this around requires a fundamental change in policy to support the establishment of private sector-driven food processing and manufacturing companies in the rural areas. Governments can do this by developing agro-allied industrial zones and staple crop processing zones in the rural areas. These zones, supported with consolidated infrastructure like road, water, electricity, and ICT, will help to drive down the cost of doing business for private food and agribusiness firms. They will create markets for farmers, boosting economic opportunities for rural areas, stimulating jobs and attracting higher domestic and foreign investments into the rural areas. They will turn the rural areas into zones of economic prosperity, away from zones of economic misery that they are today. Developing these agro-allied industrial zones and staple crop processing zones is a core priority of the African Development Bank's Feed Africa strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, the emergence of commodity exchanges in many parts of Africa will speed up this transition. The rapid rise in the use of mobile phones in Africa provides opportunities to further empower farmers to access market price information, extension services, and agricultural inputs. I know the power of mobile phones very well. As Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria before I became President of the African Development Bank, I supported the launch of the electronic wallet system that allowed farmers to access subsidized farm inputs via their mobile phones. It was built as a public-private partnership. Farmers paid for inputs themselves. Importantly, they paid themselves. There were no contracts for buying fertilizers, by the way. Farmers bought them directly from the private sector, and the government simply provided targeted subsidies for them. The system linked farmers, mobile phone companies, banks, and input suppliers. Within 4 years, close to 15 million farmers in Nigeria accessed farm inputs through their mobile phones, allowing the country to boost its food production by an additional 21 million metric tons. The electronic wallet system has also helped to substantially curtail corruption in the fertilizer and seed distribution system, further empowering farmers. Women farmers in particular benefited significantly. For some 2.5 million women farmers receive farm inputs via the system. So powerful was the system that one of the women farmers, her name is called Hajia Ladi Baladi, told me, and I quote her, "With this e-wallet over mobile phones, we get our farm inputs directly and easily, and our men cannot cheat us anymore." That voice of empowerment of women farmers through the e-wallet is resounding now in Kenya, Togo, Liberia. The ministers are here as they've already adopted e-wallet systems for farm inputs. A silent revolution of mobile phone payments for farm inputs in Africa is on its way through public-private partnerships. Some 30 countries have already approached the African Development Bank to support their own rollout of electronic wallet systems in their own countries. We also need strong public-private partnerships to solve Africa's malnutrition problem. Just last week, while traveling on the farms of Madagascar, I met several young children. Out of excitement, I called one of them, Antonio, to tell me about his hopes and his aspirations. I was so sure that Antonio, who was very short, could not be more than 5 years old. To my utter surprise, he said he was 13 years old. We all looked in total amazement at Antonio. Ladies and gentlemen, that is malnutrition. That is stunting. Antonio wants to be a medical doctor, and I hope he succeeds. But today, 58 million children like Antonio are stunted in Africa. 14 million are wasted, while 10 million are obese. Malnutrition costs Africa $25 billion a year and shaves up about 11% of the GDP both in Africa and in Asia. Malnutrition is not simply a health issue. Malnutrition is an economic problem because stunted children today will lead to stunted economies tomorrow. We must therefore change how we look at malnutrition. We can fix a bridge, or we can fix a road, but we cannot fix damaged brain cells. I therefore call for a major public-private partnership effort to build what I call grey matter infrastructure in Africa. At our annual meeting of the African Development Bank in May 2016 in Lusaka, Zambia, we established what's called the African Leaders for Nutrition in partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Bill, Big Win Philanthropy, Dangote Foundation, and the Global Panel on Agriculture and Food Systems for Nutrition, on which I sit. Our goal is to ensure accountability for malnutrition in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, public-private partnerships are also needed to get younger entrepreneurs into the agricultural sector. To support this, the African Development Bank has launched a major initiative on jobs for Africa's youth, with the goal of supporting the creation of 25 million jobs for the youth in 10 years. The Empowering Novel Agribusiness-Led Employment, or otherwise called Enable Initiative, of the bank seeks to help to create agribusinesses and entrepreneurs. You know, I remember President Obasanjo, and Baba was not here, I miss him, he's not here. But he's the one that helped me so much when I was minister to understand the difference between a farmer and an entrepreneur. He told me that he went to Canada to see a friend of his, minister, a prime minister, and he came in and he didn't tell them who he was. And he told them, my name is Olusegun Obasanjo. Of course, who cares? They kept him at the airport. He didn't tell them who he was. And they said, what's your profession? He said, I'm a farmer. And they said, we don't need farmers from Nigeria in Canada. And he sat there, and the prime minister eventually called and he said, where are you? He said, I'm right here. He said, why? He said, because I told them I'm a farmer, and they said they don't need Nigerian farmers in Canada. And so that was how he was let in. When he came back to Nigeria, his son, who got a PhD from Cambridge University, came to help him on his farm as a manager. So he told his son, when you go to he was dating a particular lady, and said, when you go there, what do you tell them you do? Do you tell them that you're a farmer? The guy said, no, I don't tell them I'm a farmer. I tell them I am an agripreneur. And we need to create that. And I did some of that, a lot of that in Nigeria. And we feel that this program will help us to create a lot of agripreneurs that can create about 8 million jobs in 10 years. We must specifically address challenges facing women farmers. I always tell my colleagues, I don't know it when you say gender. I don't understand what it means. We don't have a gender problem. We have a women's problem. That's what we have. And we must tackle it headlong. And why am I going this way before I say what I'm going to say? In 1996, I took a flight from Lagos to Abidjan. And as I got there, I had only my computer with me. You know, remember the old compact, the one that called suitcase. And I tried to put it up, and there were all these market women. They were coming with all kinds of stuff wrapped around themselves. There was no space for me to put anything. So I struggled to try to put it up there. And this woman came with a basket, all kinds of things, and shoved me aside. I said, look, I'm just trying to put this thing up. The hostess, seeing that I was in total disillusionment, came to me and said, can I help you? I said, please help me put this bag up there. I said, no, I can't. He said, because how many times do you take this plane, aircraft? I said, it depends. When I'm busy, I'll take it. He said, no, you see these market women here, they take it every single day. So this plane is their plane. So we would take your computer and put it in the hold and make space for the women. And so when I became president of the bank, I said, I must do something big for women so that they can own their own planes. They form the majority of the labor force anyway, but they lack access to land rights, finance, extension, appropriate technologies and markets. That's why the African Development Bank, we created what is called the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, otherwise called AFAWA, AFAWA. Our goal is to leverage $3 billion specifically for women farmers and women entrepreneurs. I'm sorry, men, I wish I could do something for you, but I can't help myself. When we get the issues of women's rights in agriculture, then we will finally get agriculture in Africa right. The African Development Bank and partners have also announced the technologies for African agricultural transformation, or called TAAT. This is an $800 million effort to scale up across Africa available technologies to transform key value chains in agriculture. It's a bold effort. TAAT is a public-private partnership linking governments, the International Agricultural Research Centers. IITA is helping to spearhead this with others, regional and national agricultural research centers, private sector, and farmers. But to succeed, ladies and gentlemen, to succeed, we must support African farmers to adapt to climate change. Africa contributes only 2% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the world, but we suffer disproportionately from its impact. Africa can lose. I was with Schengen Fan, the DG of IFPRI. He gave a seminar at the bank just 2 days ago, and he told us that Africa can lose up to 8% of all its production, almost 41% of all its fish production because of climate change. The very high CO2 emissions of developed countries is choking Africa's lungs and undermining Africa's growth. It is time, therefore, for a new global public-private partnership to address climate change in Africa. I call on the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environment Facility to pay for the insurance, climate insurance of African countries to what is called the Africa Risk Capacity Facility. Sometimes you have a lot of these funds that are there to support Africa, but it's like putting your hand inside a bottle. You can see what you want, but your hand can't go inside of it to get it. Africa has been shortchanged by climate change, but Africa should not be shortchanged by climate finance. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, the future of African agriculture is bright. There has never been a time more exciting than this time. Partnerships are what we need to harness the resources, enormous resources we will need to unlock the full potential of agriculture. Let me quote Kofi Annan. He was my chairman when I was vice president at AGRA. He will always be my chairman. He said, and I quote, "No single individual, group, or government can take this monumental challenge alone." End of quote. We must, and I quote, "have the vision to work together." That is the spirit behind the African Development Bank's Feed Africa initiative, to work with others to ensure that we end extreme poverty in Africa, to eliminate malnutrition, to make Africa food self-sufficient, and to move Africa to the top of the value chains globally for what Africa produces. And we must do this in the shortest possible time, for time is not on our side. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, let us seize the moment, because African farmers, they have waited for too long. And I thank you very much.